Broad Street Review Podcast, Philly's online hub for arts, culture, and commentary, where art and ideas meet. I am your host, Darnell Radford. Today on the podcast, how does one study stage combat from a distance? Today we will find out when I meet with Argent Combat. So here is my interview with the team behind Argent Combat to discuss how stage combat training can still continue from a distance. So are you both on the call?
We are, yeah. Oliver's right here. We're actually cohabitating, co-isolating, so.
Okay, great. So I'm on the call with Brittany Holdow and Oliver Donahue.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. How are you guys today?
Doing okay. It's been a pretty mellow day. We've been experiencing some of the same with, working remotely and all the calls and everything. So it's super cool to take time with you, and we super appreciate you taking time with us. So we'd love to chat. It's going to be super nice.
Yeah,
Nice. Go ahead. Sorry.
Feels very much like every other day. It's just, who am I calling today? Who am I emailing today? When am I getting up? When am I going to sleep?
Are these the same sweatpants I had on yesterday?
Well, yeah. Every day
it is kind of funny.
Yeah,
I'm almost like, why am I getting up to take a shower today?
Oh gosh, but yeah, I mean, thank you so much for having us and talking with us. Hopefully it'll be a super cool conversation, and it'll hopefully be encouraging for a lot of folks that are in a similar boat as us. I mean, not everybody's a stage combat instructor, but there are a lot of theatrical movement professionals out there and dance instructors that are probably dealing with similar things that we are. So hopefully it'll be insightful, and hopefully it'll, be helpful for a lot of folks that are in the same boat.
Yeah, definitely. So thank you for reaching out, because I've been trying to figure out what would be a good conversations to have with people right now in terms of, how they're dealing with staying at home, and the work that normally requires us to be in person with people. And then seeing your response, and I said, wow, combat training. How does one do combat training remotely? I'm sure you've got it handled. And I just think it's interesting, because I think if somebody out there is saying like, yeah, this was something I wanted to do in the spring, and plans changed, but wait a minute, I actually can do this. So maybe we'll find some more people to work with through this conversation.
Yeah, that would be amazing. I mean, right now, one of the big things that we've been doing, first and foremost, we want to support our students as much as we possibly can, even if it has to be from afar. Our challenge was our winter and spring certification course. Our students are able to take the skills proficiency test under the Society of American Fight Directors. So the current 15 to 16 week course that we were teaching was unarmed, which is all very one-on-one, just grappling physical, theatrical violence and stage combat. So there are some folks that had a little bit of wiggle room, who were also teaching stage combat in the Philly area, but they were even so only able to teach maybe a week or two after we were able to teach. That's the thing about swords; they are kind of helpful with social distancing to an extent.
I know, and I'm thinking about all the websites that have, here's this guide to working at home, and I'm wondering what a stage combat guide to working at home would entail.
There's a lot of things you can do. So when we're talking about stage combat, there's a lot of sword play and there's a lot of like unarmed physical stuff. And the things you can really do on your own are, working on your form, working on your footwork, working on, how you can control your weapons and stuff. But the actual fighting doesn't super work when you only have one person. So
Yeah.
there's it is kind of more like it's a collaborative art at the core of it. So if you don't have another person, it kind of doesn't super work the way we all have been taught how it works and the way we all think about it and the way we all kind of try and teach it. So we've had to kind of think about things in a different way, and everything's kind of like, you're still working on some basic stuff, but it's really you can't do it by yourself forever. So it's really more of a holding pattern until we can get back in contact with each other when life goes back to actually being able to interact with other people.
Yeah, I mean,
Definitely.
do we have like, how does that quote go that necessity is the mother of invention? And it's been a lot like that. Even though we've been faced with new challenges, we've also come across new opportunities to support the stage combat violence community as well as our students. One undertaking that we have right now is we've been keeping in touch with a lot of other certified stage combat organizations to build an ongoing calendar or spreadsheet of remote offerings. Our friends over at Humble Warrior Movement Arts are endeavoring to host probably the first ever virtual stage combat workshop, and that is happening
this weekend.
Yeah, this weekend.
It's just in a couple of days here from what day is today? The 12th?
The 13th.
13th, yeah.
It's one of those days that ends in the letter Y.
Right. Other members of the community who have access to their spaces. Some people own their own studios, or
some of them are cohabitating with their fellow collaborative artists.
Yeah, but so there are people who can get on a camera and demonstrate stuff and have the space to work and have all of their kit to make it more of the whole, like, yeah, here's a home video demonstration of stuff, which is terrific, to just be able to connect everybody that we have with everybody who can still have a modicum of like, hey, this is how we do stuff and this is what we're doing, and I can show it to you.
Yeah, and it's also a cool opportunity for our students as well, just keeping in touch and building this calendar with folks, because some of these organizations, they're international. So our students can say that they got to watch in and learn a little bit from some of the folks that teach theatrical violence at the British Academy of Dramatic Arts. So that's been kind of a cool experience too. So even though we're all in isolation right now, we're still able to connect in new and interesting ways. Another thing that we've been focusing on with our students personally is exploring the dramaturgy of stage combat and theatrical violence. Initially, a lot of folks like to enroll for our courses because they're like, oh, we get to play with swords. That's awesome. But, it's also growing up as, or developing oneself as an actor and as hopefully one day a certified actor combatant, is to explore the history behind why we use these theatrical props, why they look this way, and the importance of theatrical violence as a narrative device. Why is there theatrical violence? So that's been a really cool thing that we've been able to explore with our students to give them a deeper appreciation of this particular discipline in theater. So that's been nice.
Yeah. That's definitely a good point of helping your students remain in the mindset during this time where you can't be together is helpful too, because I'm thinking about I remember one time I was talking to one of my friends who said, I wish we could sort of bottle these conversations and I could just open this up whenever I'm feeling like a slump, because when we're sitting here talking, we're so engaged and we're like ready to be active right now. But then we go away from each other, and then maybe it's like an hour later, and now you're on to the next thing, and it's hard to keep that focus if you don't maintain the community. So I think
Hmm.
it's really great. I think it's really great that you're maintaining the community, uh, even though the work that you do is really hands-on,
Hmm.
for the most part.
Yeah, and it's been cool that we've been able to support other communities as well. Oliver and I just had a really wonderful opportunity with a couple of our friends who were, well, friends and colleagues who were hosting a 12-hour fundraising marathon of movement artists and theatrical performers in general. Oliver got the opportunity to kind of workshop a course that a class at least that we had in the works, discussing uh, theatrical props when it comes to theatrical violence, why they look the way they do, the history behind them, and how to determine if they are safe to use. Um, and all the proceeds from this fundraiser went out to support RAIN, which is a wonderful organization who is working probably harder than usual at this time to support people that are in dangerous domestic situations in isolation, which is a cause that
Yeah.
personally concerned about, but it's really cool. I know the fundraiser is still open, so if folks are interested in supporting that, the host site is our friends over at the Hustling Creative, and they're wonderful. They just have cool programs all the time, anyway, that kind of artists support the community. But yeah, I know that fundraiser is still open. Last time I checked, we were about halfway to the $10,000 goal to support RAIN. And then Argent Combat, personally, we're building a program. I'm going to be mostly hosting that, exploring the dramaturgy of stage combat and theatrical violence, and how stage combat and theatrical violence are supported by everybody within a theatrical production, not just the fight choreographers and the actors and directors, but also wardrobe design, makeup designers, or makeup artists rather, folks that are designing the set, and kind of interviewing some of those folks. And all the donations that folks make to that program, at least our portion, are going to support our venue and the outreach ministries of St. Mary's. Because even though they're under quarantine right now, they're not physically able to be in the parish or in the parish office. All their outreach ministries are still operating more than usual to try to support some vulnerable populations in Philadelphia. So we, really want to reach out on that end too. So it's been really cool seeing folks kind of band together and continue to love their craft and actively practice their craft, also to reach out to other communities as well.
Yeah, that's great.
Mm-hmm.
Can you both tell us, for some of the people listening who may not fully know who you all are, tell us a little bit about your backgrounds and how Argent Combat came to be.
Sure.
I'm Oliver Donahue. I have been studying stage combat for a long, long, long time now. I took kind of the classical approach to it. I started learning about it, and then when I got into Philly, back from school, I found people who were teaching in Philly and just started attending classes and learning from them. And then eventually, I hung out long enough that my instructor was like, "Hey, come assist me on this job." And then, I became the assistant, and then kept going to workshops, going to the national workshop in the States, which was held in Las Vegas at the time, and went to the national workshop up in Canada, which was in Montreal at the time, and kept learning and kept working and kept expanding the craft, and then took the instructors workshop. And both the Society of American Fight Directors and Fight Directors Canada. I'm a certified instructor with both organizations. They're complementary organizations, and they're both very dedicated to the work that they do. And so, like I say, it's the traditional way, because I essentially served an apprenticeship with a master of the craft, and then afterwards went out and became a journeyman and started learning from all other kinds of instructors all across the States and Canada, and then eventually now I'm an instructor in my own right, and passing on stuff and exploring stuff and learning new stuff, and just trying to keep the mission of it going.
And then I guess for me, I was always very movement oriented. Before I got into theater, I was very into dance. So kinetic art was what resonated most with me. And I had a bit of an unfortunate thing happen. I was unfortunately injured on a student film set when I was at Temple University from theatrical violence. It was kind of a revelatory moment for me, where I just realized there's got to be a smarter way to do this, where I don't get hurt, I don't potentially hurt my friends. And lo and behold, SAFD Master Ian Rose was teaching elective courses in stage combat over at my alma mater, Temple University. So I took classes. I loved it. And it was really important for me to take it just for my own agency and autonomy, and to go into situations of theatrical violence with informed consent and enthusiastic consent. At the time, Oliver was apprenticing under Fightmaster Ian Rose, and that's kind of how we came to be friends. And after Oliver got his teaching certification, we kind of sat down, and I was like, "Hey, so when are you going to teach?" And then it was that winter, December 14th, 2017 is technically Argent Combat's birthday. We've been around for a little over 2 years now. And Oliver taught a class in theatrical knife play. And from there, we've just been teaching classes and hosting small seasonal weekend workshops ever since, just to try to engender folks to theatrical violence, and the fact that it's, not all malicious and terrible and scary. Theatrical violence is a very important and positive narrative tool, and it's important for performers' autonomy, agency, and informed consent, like it was for me.
Yeah. So the thing that we try to do throughout, I teach privately. We host a couple of workshops, or when we can, we host
in the before time.
We host a couple of a couple of little weekend introductory stuff. But the point of it, the underlying goal is always the same. Whether I'm teaching a class or whether I'm working on a show as the choreographer, whatever I'm doing, the point is always about in actor safety and getting performers to understand, hey, this is the baseline of what is safe, and if you don't feel safe, say so. And if someone asks you to do a thing that doesn't feel safe, say no. You can do that. I know we're actors. We have this desire to say yes. Just to yeah, I can do this. Whatever. Yeah. How does this work? Yeah, I can do that. I can work with that. Yeah, of course. But if someone says, "Hey, we're gonna slap you in the face right now," just say no, because that's incredibly dangerous and horrible. Don't let people abuse you in the name of art, because it's not art.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would just be. I could only imagine what a rehearsal process would be if consent wasn't there, if everyone wasn't comfortable going through the process. I can't imagine why a director would say, we need this to happen, whether anyone feels comfortable doing it or not. It seems like such a collaborative effort. And I mean, when it's well done, and we've seen it on so many of our stages here in the community, fight choreography is just beautiful, and you're just thinking like, I want to see how the sausage is made here, because
Mhm.
this finished product is wonderful. And I know that it was, that there were some moments where you found some really great spots that are going to work, but how do we get there and so on. I just think all of this is very exciting.
Because and at the end of the day, like when if like you do something that's quote unquote very simple, like getting slapped in the face. Oh yeah, it's just a
Mhm.
slap in the sure. But if it's real, then you're not acting anymore. Like
Yeah.
then it's dangerous and you're not acting. And the extra bit of spoiler is that when violence is real, it doesn't look good and it doesn't sound right. And those two
Yeah.
things are that's how we get away with a lot of the things that we get away with staging combat to look dangerous but not actually be dangerous. Is we know how to, it's because it's not about if two people are in a fight, the important thing is their relationship with each other. They're trying to hurt each other. But if two people are having a fight on stage, the important thing is their relationship with the audience. Like, it doesn't matter what it looks like to the performers, it matters what the audience sees. So when you're choreographing a fight, when you're building a scene, you're the choreographer is always thinking about what it looks like to the outside observer. So we'll do things that are physically weird for the performers. Like, it won't feel like the right thing to do, but that's kind of the hick to get over when when you're like, all right, yeah, this doesn't feel right, but it looks good and it sounds good, and that's the important thing, because it's like,
Hmm.
yeah, you're throwing a punch at the empty air, 10 to 12 inches away from the person you're quote unquote trying to hit, but it doesn't matter because the way that it's set is fooling the audience's eye, is fooling the audience's ear, so it looks good and it sounds good, and yeah, it feels weird until you get used to it, but it makes the work. It's the secret. It is, like you said, how the sausage is made.
Mm-hmm.
Like I talk about when building some stuff, I usually talk about how we're doing a lot of magic tricks, right? Where we're making the observer think something is happening when something else is actually going on behind the scenes secretly.
Yeah.
I guess
Can
another thing
you?
to know. Oh, sorry.
No.
I guess
Go right
something,
ahead.
yeah. So I guess another thing to note too about theatrical violence. I think usually when folks think of stage combat and theatrical violence, they're thinking of gritty stories about vengeance and retrieving blood debts. But one thing I think a lot of folks overlook is slapstick as well. Sometimes theatrical violence isn't just a gritty, visceral fight. Sometimes it is physical comedy.
Sometimes it's just somebody falling down.
Yeah. So I think that in and of itself is really kind of a huge reinforcer of the fact that theatrical violence is needed for narrative clarity. Because nobody wants to watch a sloppy slapstick scene. That was really difficult to say. That was a lot of alliteration. A sloppy slapstick scene. Because,
It's a great tongue twister.
but yeah, I mean, there's a full spectrum of theatrical violence, and even though the word violence is in it, and by nature I'm a pacifist, theatrical violence is important and it is necessary. We need to tell these stories, and we need to tell them well. Otherwise, why tell them at all?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Can you walk us through a stage combat class? What can someone expect from a stage combat class? Let's say you're someone who loves movies with tons of fight sequences, and you think this is something you want to have an understanding of. Um, how would that person approach a stage combat class?
So finding one, first of all, which there are lots of teachers all over the country. teaching in all sorts of different ways. There's lots of workshops going on, and the organizations are usually really good about providing contact information for their members and outreach programs, which is a thing I know Britt has been working on a lot, especially the last few months. But so the way a typical class goes, when you show up to the first day of your class, the instructor will introduce themselves. They'll talk about what the discipline you're studying is, and then like most exercise kind of things, there'll be a warm up where you'll get your muscles loose, you'll get a little bit of sweat going, you'll get the things that you're going to be using are going to be stretched out and limbered up, so you're not like trying to run around the room with all of your muscles cold. And then there'll be a period of technical instructions. Like, all right, if I'm going to teach how to punch somebody in the face, I'm going to be like, all right, here's how this works technically. I'll have an assistant. Assistants are great. Having someone who knows what you're going to do is... Shout
out to Steve and Millie, the best demo assistants ever.
Yeah, Millie Thompson and Steve are our two primary assistants, and they're great. I've known them for years, and it's usually... Once you work with an assistant long enough, you get to the point where they know what you're going to do before you tell them you're going to do it. So they're kind of just going to roll with whatever's happening. So I'll be like, all right, so here's the technique we're going to learn. Here's how it works. So then, I'll show it. Me and the assistant will perform the technique in the way that you would see it on stage or in camera, right? And the idea of that is to be like, all right, here's the illusion, right? Here's how this works. And then you break it down piece by piece and be like, all right, here's the secret. Here's how this works. Here's all the things you need to know about how this technique works safely. Here's how far away you have to be from another person. Here's the way that your arm has to travel. Here's the timing of when you lift your arm, when you turn your hips, when you throw the punch, what you do with your arm when you're finished with it. And then when you put all that together and it all works, it's, boom, it's the technique and it works. And then you just practice it for a while. And you do that and you just keep doing it because it's muscle memory. It's learned behavior. And you do it and the assistant and the teachers will wander around the room, like looking at things from different angles and adjust and making little adjustments to people. And you keep doing that. You do that with a couple of different techniques. And then the way I like to do it is, when I teach, whatever I teach during the day, usually with, however long my class is, I'll usually teach technical stuff for about half of it. And then we'll take all that technical stuff and we'll put it all together in a little phrase, because when you put a technique and then another technique and then another technique and then another technique in order and connect them in a natural way that makes sense, all of a sudden that's a fight. And then you give your students a handful of techniques all in an order, and boom, now they have a fight. And I'll do that on the first day of a class, because if you're a person who loves cool fight scenes, if you're a person who loves sword play, we love that stuff. And the price of being good at swordplay is getting good at swordplay. So it takes time to learn how to do stuff safely, and how to do stuff believably, because they're like, for the most parts, like swordplay is not a thing people usually do these days. So they're very odd motions of your body. You're using your muscles in different and new ways. And you're doing it not even to do something for yourself, but you're doing it so someone looking at you is like, yeah, that looks good. So it's learning the little things is hard and tricky and takes time and repetition and work. And it's just, you can't learn a great fight in an hour. Like Danny Kaye could, but he was a crazy performer. Who is a phenomenally skilled mimic, But, Danny Kaye could learn a fight in an hour despite having not fought before, because Danny Kaye was good at a lot of other things that let him transfer all those skills over to swordplay. But that is a very outlying example. But yeah, so you start with a warm up, you learn some techniques, you put a bunch of those techniques together, and you learn a little fight. And every class you learn more stuff. Every class you draw from the stuff you already know how to do, and the fights get bigger, and the fights get longer, and the fights get more and more fighty. And then by the conclusion of the class, however long it lasts, we usually run for about 15 weeks. But if you're in a university setting, it's going to be, you're going to have your first day of class and you're going to have your last day of class, however long your university schedule is like. And by the end of it, you'll have a fight scene. It'll be a scene of performance with a fight in it. And that's the idea, is to get a student to have a basic grasp of how all of the stuff that we do works. And there's always going to be more to learn. Obviously, we're all still learning new stuff and different stuff. And I'm not going to say better, but just how to accomplish the same thing in a different kind of way. Because, sometimes one way to do things works better, sometimes a different way works. But through a full course, you'll learn how fights work and how to put stuff together and how to make it look believable to an audience.
So, so you mentioned this class, this process would be about 15 weeks.
That's how long we usually run. Yeah.
Yeah.
The organization, Society of American Fight Directors, calls when you're teaching a certification course, students need 30 hours of contact instruction with a certified teacher. So we usually find 2 hours is about how much you can give people before their brains start to melt on you. So usually 15 weeks, 2 hours a day, or 2 hours of class. There are workshops that really, really squeeze it down. The national workshop is 3 weeks long, and you're working 8 to 10 hours a day, depending on the specific workshop you're attending. So you can pack them all in, or you can stretch them all out. But 30 hours is required by the organization. You're usually going to get more than that, just in general, because that's just work inside the classroom, not even counting, practicing at home, working with your partner outside of class, that kind of stuff.
Yeah. So that process feels very thorough and legitimate, but I'm thinking about the time frame that a theatrical production might have for a rehearsal process. Is that foundation in stage combat needed for, let's say, a new director to pick up a piece of Shakespeare that has a fight sequence in it and get their cast ready for for the big scene? What would happen in that capacity?
So being a teacher and being a fight director are two kind of really different things. They use the same skill set of the person, but when I'm approaching things as a teacher and when I'm approaching things as a fight choreographer, it's two different hats that I have to wear, right? Mm-hmm. So when I'm teaching, the idea is to get students, a basic level of skill, to teach them how the thing works and to build, to give them a solid grounding in the work that we're doing. And like you said, most theatrical productions don't have that kind of time. So when I'm put on my fight choreographer's hat, the thing that I'm doing is building the performance for the show, right? So I'll strip out everything I don't need and give the performers exactly what they need for this production, right? So if we're doing if we're doing a fight in a Shakespeare play, if we're doing Romeo and Juliet, which is, you know, the show everybody loves that no one remembers has a ton of fights in it. You know, when you have that big sword fight in Act 3, Scene 1, you have that big sword fight, and that sword fight will be as big as your actors can make it. Because one of the first things I learned as a fight director was that if something's not working, get rid of it, because the only person who knows that it's gone is you. The audience, like a fight can be a sword fight can be 4 moves and over with. It doesn't have to be big and long and take up lots of time. They're great when you can. Like, I really like watching big, long fight scenes, but a fight scene can be 4 moves and just as acted just as well and have just as big an effect on the audience as, you know, a big sprawling fight all over the stage for 5 minutes. So if you have actors who don't have a background in combat, don't try to make them do stuff that's not going to work. Like, I'll figure out how they move, figure out what you can get out of your actors, and then highlight their skills. Like, make them look good. That's what, like, my first job is to keep them safe. My second job is to make them look cool. Because if they don't look good, if they don't look like they know what they're doing, then it's not going to be believable for an audience. So when I'm choreographing a show, it's not making it about, okay, here's all of the skills you'll need to do fight stuff. It's, all right, here's what we're doing in this scene. Here are the important beats that have to happen, and here's how we're going to do that to accomplish that. So one thing that fight directors love to have is when, you know, they get called in for a production, which is usually, you know, ideally at the beginning of the production before casting. Because, you know, fight choreographers are part of the production team, just like the set designer and the costume designer. So when the director gets everybody together and they start going through the things that they need, when you're casting the show, seeing actors who have, you know, credentials from organizations like the Society of American Fight Directors is really good to have, because it's like, oh, here's a person who knows the basics already. Here's a person who already knows how to be safe, how to hold a weapon, how to look like you can fight. This is a person I can give more stuff to than I could someone who's never held a sword before. So so that's where the other hat comes in, because training actors as a CT, training actors as a certified teacher, is helping out choreographers down the way who want to build bigger or more complex or more intricate fight scenes, and having a pool of performers who are like, yeah, I know how to be safe. Show me what you want me to do, because I know how to move my body in the way that the audience will want to see. As opposed to just having a person who is like, yeah, I really like swordplay. I've never done anything of it, but I'm eager to learn. Like, that's, you know, teachers teach, choreographers choreograph. And the skill set is similar, but it's you know, the teacher is trying to make students better, and the choreographer is trying to make the performance look good.
It's and if I may, one thing that always I found incredible about theatrical violence and stage combat is that it is acting, yes. Violence is a narrative tool, yes. But in some ways, it's almost like an act of prestidigitation. When I meet a new person and they ask me what stage combat is, one of the analogies that I oftentimes use is, let's say myself and a person who has studied the art of prestidigitation for years, we go on a stage, we both call up a volunteer, and we both do the sawing the volunteer in half act. And the big difference between theatrical violence and real violence is my volunteer is not going to make it out of the box. It is a lot of that. theatrical violence and stage combat, it is a lot of presentation, but with intent. So it is an incredibly valuable skill when it comes to works of theater that portray anything that is physically visceral.
And do you see the makeup of your students to be mostly theater students, or what are some of the backgrounds that they come from?
It's interesting. One really cool thing that we experienced, or at least observed last year, was 51.6% of our student body are femme identifying and non-binary people, which is amazing. I'm over the moon about that personally. It's just really cool. When I first started stage combat, it was just myself and another femme identifying person in the class. So to see that huge shift is amazing. But a lot of them come from several different backgrounds. A good chunk of them are theater professionals. Some of them are martial artists that want to explore their autonomy and dedicate their skills to becoming good actors eventually. There's some folks that have a HEPA background or a historic European martial arts background. A good chunk of them are movement artists who would like to explore movement within the realm of theatrical violence and stage combat. It's pretty varied. I mean, right now, the class that we were teaching was unarmed, which is kind of, for some folks, introductory to stage combat. It is one of the skills that folks need to be certified in order to become actor combatants under the Society of American Fight Directors. So a lot of folks, it's their first time. There are some folks that they started with swordplay a little earlier. There's some folks who have dance backgrounds even. It really varies. I'm so proud of our student base. I love them so much.
You'll find, well, I mean, when we talk about stage combat or theatrical violence, you're going to find the majority of students come from a performance or a performance-related background. We have I've had students who were film directors who were like, I want to know how this part of the business works. Like, you'll have people who are stage managers by trade, who are just getting in and expanding the things that they know how to do. But there are people who are like, I think swordplay sounds cool and I'm going to do it. So, you know, you'll get people from all walks of life, but the majority of your students will probably be from a performance background.
Yeah. Let's see, because there were a bunch of notes here. Really good. Did we, so we did touch on, what was that?
I said, that's what happens when we talk about the thing we really like doing. We go on very loving tangents.
I think that's great because we're used to seeing a finished product, and how often do we get to deep dive into a very specific part of a very specific piece of the puzzle? So I enjoy that. Whenever an interview says, sorry, I'm being nerdy, I'm like, that's exactly what you're supposed to do here.
You don't apologize for being nerdy, period.
So I guess I know it is tough being distant from your students here, but have there been any sort of interesting elements in this time of distance that you experience with engaging your students?
Yeah. Like Brittany was talking about earlier, there's a lot of our colleagues who are putting together a lot of little things, and our good friend Sam from Humble Warrior Movement Arts is putting together the first all virtual stage combat workshop. But one of the things that I think is really entertaining to me personally is when I was learning, when I was a student, and then when I was the assistant, there came a point where my teacher, Ian Rose, was like, "All right, you've been working with me for a number of years now, and I need you to get out. I need you to go and learn from other people. I need you to go up to New York, talk to these people, go down to DC and talk to these people. Go to this work, go do that, do this, do the other thing. Call them up, ask if you can come and hang out at their classes." And it's a thing to like, you never want to stay in one place forever, right? So like, if you can have a really good teacher and learn a ton from them, but all your learning is from them, it kind of restricts your focus. And what we've had nowadays, and so getting out and learning from many different people really expanded the way I think about my art and the way I think about what we do. So it's not like I'm not just, my teacher's student. I'm not just a little miniature Ian Rose doing all the things Ian would do in all the ways that he does them. I do a lot of things the way Ian does them because they're really, really good. He's a fight master for a lot of really good reasons. But, I've learned from other people. I've learned other styles. And that, when you are the sum of your experiences. So, when putting together the way I do stuff, I take from here, I take from there, I do, and then it all becomes my way, right? So the fact that so many of our colleagues are doing things virtually and are, just out there and like, hey, this is how I do stuff. This is how, come watch me do this kind of thing. So, other people in Philly, other teachers in New York, teachers all across the country, and like teachers in Canada are all doing this kind of stuff. So it's really easy to go to my students and be like, hey, here's a whole bunch of other things you can learn from my colleagues without even leaving your home. Like, you don't have to get up and go across the country to go hang out with somebody else for a couple of weeks. You can just chime into their stuff because, they're doing stuff in the mornings on, Wednesdays and Thursdays or whatever. And it's giving people a wider breadth of how different people in the organization do stuff. And that, I think, is one of the most valuable things you can give to your students is other people's expertise.
Yeah, it's really true. One of the cool things about the calendar is that we're collaborating to build with several other organizations is that there are some folks that it's not just stage combat. We very strongly encourage our students to explore kinetic learning with different disciplines. So there are some folks that are on the calendar that are theatrical movement professionals, maybe delving into, for example, Alexander technique or Alba emoting. There are some folks that are specializing in yoga and dance, and just for the opportunity for our students to explore the full range of their motion and respect their body as a vessel to create art, and to maybe even develop a new sense of autonomy and agency and appreciation for what they're capable of and who they are. That's a really huge thing for us. So this has been a really cool opportunity to give our students the opportunity to intellectually explore theatrical violence, sure, but also an opportunity to explore their range of motion and how to explore their emotions through kinesiology in that way has just been super cool. I miss everybody terribly. I miss all of our students really, really terribly. And I know Oliver feels the same way, and our demo assistants feel the same way. I just desperately miss everybody. But it's really cool that we have this new opportunity to give them something that we hadn't really considered. Well, we'd considered it before, sure, but a new opportunity to explore things on their own, without any pressure and without, worrying of looking silly, just to explore things without inhibition in this way has been really cool.
Yeah. Do you see anything in in this time frame that we're in now that will carry forward as we um, progress away from this situation that could act as sort of a hybrid or sort of a component to your offerings at Argent Combat?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, with the idea of the remote class offerings, I think a lot of the organizations that we're collaborating with are planning to continue some remote warm-ups and courses, and I'd really like to make those available to our students. And I do want us to continue to explore the dramaturgy of theatrical violence and stage combat. I think it would be an accessible way for folks to learn. If they're not able to physically do things, then they can still learn about stage combat in some capacity, which I think is going to be beneficial to our community at large. Oliver, I don't know if you have any thoughts on that.
Yeah, I mostly agree. There are some people who are really taking to the remote learning, shall we say, just setting up camera in their studio and broadcasting. And I think that's going to continue regardless of what happens when we can all get back in public again. But that's probably the biggest takeaway, is that people who have found a thing that they like to do are gonna keep doing it, even when we can go back to doing other stuff.
Yeah, that's a good note to end on. Yeah, we're going to find a way to continue to do what it is that we love doing, and we're not going to let situations like this hold us back. We're just going to evolve and figure out how to do things differently. I just think that there's so many great things that we're doing now, that we had not planned on doing, that I really hope many of these organizations figure out a way to continue doing them and create some sort of component, because it's not just how do we engage the people who would have physically been with us, but how do we reach a new audience who, found us through this moment? And you're right. So the people that are sort of getting used to this and kind of taking a liking to the distance learning, they can also benefit from what you've normally done and this as well. And this kind of adds for a little bit of, I guess, in a way, kind of some ease. I was saying on another interview, it's like you're not worrying about being stuck in traffic or running late or anything like that. You just chime in when you chime in, unless you've got bread in the oven, because everyone's a baker and a fight choreographer. That would be fun. So how can our listeners become your students?
Oh, well, that is my wheelhouse. So, if I may, we are obviously on social media. Feel like everybody's living on social media nowadays. But we're on Facebook and Instagram and Twitter, and all of our social media links can be found on our website, www.argentcombat.com. One thing we really encourage folks to do is to look into the fundraising efforts of our colleagues, Hustling Creative and Art Violente, for Artists Against Domestic Violence. I believe the Hustling Creative's website is just www.thehustlingcreative.com. They are also on Facebook, and you're able to donate to that ongoing campaign from their website. And another thing, if folks are curious to learn a bit more about what it is we plan to offer in the future, they can drop me a line, Brittany, Brittany at argentcombat.com. We're going to be starting up a program, a forum rather, that we're calling Blood Pact. And that is going to be me touching base with a lot of folks. It's an interdisciplinary theater forum discussing the impact of theatrical violence and stage combat and how we all each other in theater productions and film productions as well. That's going to be starting up sometime in June. And donations from viewers and listeners like you are going to support the outreach ministries of our venue, St. Mary's, as well as some charities of our panelists' choices. So yeah, there's a bunch going on. It all starts at our website, honestly, argentcombat.com, and yep, just trying to make everything accessible to the best of my ability.
Yeah. Well, great. Is there anything else we want to add before we wrap up?
Oliver?
I don't think I've got anything, but thank you so much for having us on.
Yeah, seriously.
Yeah, thank you for taking the time to tell us more about Argent Combat and how you're dealing with this current situation. I feel like I've done a lot of talking in code without sort of naming names for the situation that we're in. But I think it's so inspiring to see people not just laying and waiting and not just sitting around. We're just saying, okay, well, it's kind of like, well, there's a traffic jam here, so how do we find a detour and continue to keep moving forward or as best as we can. So
yeah, it might take longer. We might be going slower, but we're all moving forward.
Yeah, and also, you know, if you're just listening in and you don't feel obligated to produce at this time, you know, I feel like a lot of us have this sentiment of when I have time, I'm going to do X, Y, and Z.
Yeah.
The time that we thought it was going to be. So, you know, definitely encourage our students and our colleagues and other artist professionals to do things at your own pace. You're not obligated to produce at this time just because we're kind of in shelter in place right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's not just time that we needed. It's, you know, it's headspace, it's motivation. And, you know, all of those pieces have to be there as well. So it's kind of like when you say, if I had a day off, I would do, you would probably do nothing because you have a day off, you know. It's not just the time. So there's a lot of things that need to be in there. So yes, everyone has to, you know, I think it's a great opportunity to think about some things you would love to do in the future. Is this an opportunity for change, or you know, something that you've had on the back burner to kind of move up front? And yeah, so I think all of it is good, and there's some balance in all of it that hopefully everyone will find while we are waiting for what's next.
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, I know I've seen that one meme circulating that was like, when Shakespeare was under quarantine, he wrote King Lear. You don't have to write King Lear right now. I mean, yesterday I sat on the and then on days that I feel good, I collaborate with other stage combat organizations and try to help our students. You know, just take it day by day and do what feels right to you.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, well, Brittany Holdow and Oliver Donahue, it was a pleasure talking to you today, and thank you so much for taking the time to unpack Argent Combat with us, and let us please keep in touch, because I would love to continue conversations once we get down the road and things change, to see what that looks like too. I think it would be great.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Darnell, it was such a pleasure. Thanks so much for having us on.
Yeah, thanks so much.
Yeah, thanks a lot, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Yeah, enjoy your bread.
Yes.
I will. Thank you so much. Head on over to our website at www.broadstreetreview.com and click Get Involved at the top. While you're there, help keep us running and click Contribute to find out how. Connect with us on social media, on Facebook and Twitter at Broad Street Review. Thank you for helping to keep the conversation going.